you want to kind of be very clear with people. Here's what the offer is. Here's what the deal is. And then if you kind of start realizing that, like, hang on a second, if I start creating content rich ads, that does most of the pre-qualifying for you anyway. Mention the price perhaps in the ad as well, because that's a great qualifier, and get people to buy from you. But look at YouTube as almost like this is a platform where you can build a brand and get people to know you, like you, and trust you. But most importantly, consider buying from you.
Today on the show, I've got an exclusive interview with the one and only Tom Breeze. And I actually asked him about a year ago to come on the show. And then I actually got to connect with him. We actually spoke at this event at EMC, and he agreed to come on and explain what he basically went through at this event, which blew me away. Now, if you haven't heard of Tom, first of all, he runs one of the largest YouTube ad agencies on the planet. He's recognized by Google as one of the YouTube ad experts. And his company, Viewability, they have a very specific model. They run a pay per results only model. And because they're doing volume with ads, obviously they have to get results for their clients, right? Because it's paid on results only, not pay per click or, any of the other models. And what they did is over the last year or two, they realized that most people are running ads wrong, right? And they developed this software called Bidurk, which basically allows people to analyze their channels effectively to run effective ads. And the presentation that he did at AMC blew me away, because what we do with our magic traffic funnel systems, right, basically is organic ranking ads. And he's basically one of the leading experts on the planet, and he's saying that this is what we need to be doing, but we need to be running ads to that model. So I obviously wanted to talk to him and break this down so that we could obviously bring this to you guys. So this is going to be one of those interviews where you get massive aha moments. Now, you want to listen to Tom. He's worked with some of the leaders in the industry. He's worked with ClickFunnels. He's worked with Amy Porterfield. He's worked with Frank Kern. He's worked with Neil Patel, right? And he is known as kind of the grandfather of he's not that old, but he's kind of known as the grandfather in our industry of YouTube ads. And what they've now discovered is something that you can apply to your campaign. So without further ado, we're going to get straight into it right now. Here he is, Tom Breeze. Hi, Tom.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, man. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you giving us a bit of time today.
Yeah, of course, mate. No worries.
Yeah, we didn't get a proper chance to have a chat because I know you were speaking on the first day of EMC and I was speaking on the third day. And I did have a chat with you last year, didn't I? I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, no, I remember. Yeah, I remember. And then also we kind of like very briefly bumped into each other, didn't we, at the MC or not? Maybe not.
Yeah, we very briefly bumped in. But the reason I wanted to bring you on really is because like every single year at EMC, I don't know how comfortable you are about people being really nice to you, but some people don't like
it's
it.
Better
right?
than being horrible to me. Yeah.
yeah. But like, I mean, I know, for instance, like the marketers in the room, the ones like the speakers, like Matt and myself, like when you get on stage, right, we really pay attention because you're running like so much data on YouTube ads and you've kind of had to flip reverse everything you were doing. And kind of like everybody who's running ads in the industry, or, from what the data that you're gathering is are kind of been following an older model, which you've kind of proven to not be working as effective. So you've kind of had to relook. And part of your speech was like, you were looking at the data and we're like, well, what we were doing, we had to go back to the drawing board and say, right, rather than fixing what we were doing, we need to kind of scrap it, relook at it, rebuild it and work on what it is. Right.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Kind of like saw a lot of data and realized there's probably a better way of approaching this if we just look at it as a whole, like not trying to improve little bits of it, but just like, hang on a second, are we just approaching this whole thing in the wrong way? So yeah. So let me just tell everyone like a little bit about who you are and what you do, because some of my guys will have heard of you, I'm sure, but some of them won't, right? So I know you've worked with or are currently working with, I'm not sure which way round it is, but you've worked with Alex Hormozy, ClickFunnels, Amy Porterfield, Frank Kern, and that's just to name a few, right? So you're running a lot of ad spend for a lot of, especially in our industry and probably a lot of other industries as well, like a lot of big marketers. So you get access to this data. And
just to give you a little bit of a brief outline of my approach, and then that'll kind of like direct how we want to run this interview, because what we've been doing is I don't run ads, right? Paid ads, but we're about to switch them on. And so I have a very boutique sort of operation. But what we have discovered over the last few years obviously I don't have access to the data you have because you're running a lot of like volume in terms of money. But what we generally do is do split tests and kind of work things out that way. But what we've been doing the last few years is kind of resonated so much with what your speech was at EMC, because we run like a series of organic content. And then we send the traffic back from our funnels to that organic content, which pushes them up the search engines, right? Because Google recognizes that that content is not being watched by them. They're not serving it up. So Google goes, okay, that probably needs to go a bit further up the search engine. And it works really powerful. So nice, yeah, and we have this thing called the magic funnel system. So we basically, like, depending on what campaign we're doing, it kind of works for anything, but one way or another, we'll get them back on YouTube videos, building know, like, and trust, which also in turn builds a really valuable email list, right? And it in turn obviously builds, like I know Mike Filsaime coined the phrase, like, your email list is your business. So if you have an email list, you should be earning $1 per month. And the last time I actually looked, I haven't looked at it, truthfully, I haven't looked at it since October, but we were doing $17 per month per subscriber. So I have a really small email list, but it's obviously hugely profitable, and it generates repeat buyers. We've got like a very big percentage of people who buy again. And like so much of what you were saying was kind of resonating with me, because you're leaning into that now, really, aren't you? But using paid ads, you're kind of leaning into the fewer clicks, direct response, kind of very different to how like you would treat it on Facebook. YouTube's now penalizing you for clicks, right? They're like, the cost per click is more. I mean, obviously I'll let you talk about it, so you can obviously explain it better than I can, but YouTube's obviously penalizing us for the click now, where we're just optimizing for the click. And they've obviously removed a ton of the ways that we can do targeting for ads, right? which was really threw my mind, because I was like, oh, we're just about to start running ads and now we can't do it the way. But then when you said how we can do it, I was thinking that was kind of what I was thinking. I was thinking of boosting my already profitable organic content. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you, really, because it's like my mind's just like going off in 1,000 different directions, right? And I know if it's exciting to me, my audience, like people who watch my channel, they're absolutely going to love it, right? So can I just start with like getting a little bit of a background from you, just so people can understand where you come from and how you sort of got into paid advertising, especially with YouTube and things like that?
Yeah. So I think that like probably the best place to start from my background really is that I was going end of my kind of studies at school. So I was 18, finished my A-levels, and wanted to kind of explore an area at university, but I didn't really have a clear idea of what I wanted to do. I'd worked hard at school, got some good grades, but was like, I don't know what the next step should be, or I didn't have a true passion in anything I'd learned just yet. I did like chemistry, mathematics, and geography, I think it was. And all of those three, I was like, I kind of like them a little bit, but there's nothing like making me really excited. Yeah. This is back in the day where it was probably best to go to university if you could, because it kind of opened up all the doors. I think it's a different story these days. And so I kind of got into psychology. That's kind of the subject matter that I decided to major in. And yeah, that was such a great education for me. I felt like it really, I was able to kind of dig into content I really enjoyed and loved it, and just found a passion for it. So I did that for 3 years, finished up at Leeds University, and then went on to do my master's down in the south, down in London. And when I was there doing my master's, I kind of majored in sport, but also kind of so it was psychology, but I kind of had a sport angle to it. And I was like working with lots of sports people. I was like, okay, cool. I love sport and I love psychology, but I wasn't really that passionate about working with people in the sport capacity, because it was like you get paid nothing. I was like, this career progression doesn't look exciting to me whatsoever. It was like lots of education, lots of hard work, and very little pay. And so I was like, okay, well, I looked at all my studies. I'd finished my master's at that point and realized that one of the areas I could explore was the business world. So I studied in things like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, timeline therapy, loads of different kind of like disciplines that you can learn to work with people. And from there, I realized I was kind of still in my early 20s. I was not going to become a life coach or anything like that. I knew nothing about life just yet. And what I decided to do was say, well, I'm really good so far. What I've been doing is helping people with anxiety, and not like chronic anxiety, like, or general anxiety, just more a case of someone who's like, do you know what? I've got a presentation coming up next week and I'm crapping my pants. I don't want to go and give this presentation or meeting. I'm already working out how I'm going to hand in my sick notice so I don't have to go to this event or this meeting or whatever it might be. So worked with a lot of people doing that in London, or that was my plan anyway, to kind of like work on that, because I lived in London at the time. And I was kind of struggling to get the business going. I did a lot of yellow pages, and then I did a load of different directories as well to try and see if I could get the phone ringing. Nothing was really working for me. I tried some PR and I got in some like amazing publications, but still nothing really that came from those articles. I thought, oh, this is the thing that's going to do it for me. Really didn't get that much from it at all. And then a leaflet came through the door, because I just started my company, from Google saying, go and spend £30 on Google ads on us. So it was like a voucher that you could plug into the system. I was like, well, look, I'm not doing anything with my time. I'm just waiting for the phone to ring and it's not ringing. So I might as well figure this thing out. And went online, and Google wasn't even the preferred search engine at the time. I think it was Yahoo was like the most popular one at the time. So I kind of worked out Google, and I realized that, okay, cool. If someone types in a certain keyword, my ad appears. And I said, if they type in fear of public speaking, my ad would appear. And I was like, okay, that's pretty simple. I get it. I can narrow this down based on geography. I can narrow it down based on the demographic data. And so I was like, well, I have an office in Canary Wharf, which I kind of did a timeshare, so to speak, office in Canary Wharf. And then I had one in, then I had one at the time, I think it was in South Kensington. And so I kind of split across those two different locations, just ran ads across London. And I started the campaign on the very first day. It must have spent about £30 on day one, because I thought, let's just go for it. And that was all free because it was all Google's voucher. And the phone rang twice, and I closed 2 bits of business. And I did it for, I think it was like £250 per session, because I used to do like a 3-hour session with people just to kind of get the fear done. And was very successful in the actual the therapy, so to speak. But I hadn't really worked out that I just cracked Google Ads on day one. I was like, wow. And I only cracked it because it was so simple at that time and no one was doing it. So it was so cheap. And the next day, same thing. And I was making so much money. I was making like £500 a day at this time. I had to go and then service those clients and work with them. So a lot of the cost came down from that. My time was included. But I realized that like I could go and pay kind of £30 to acquire a £250 customer. And then the only way I thought I could improve that business was to increase the amount I'd charge people. So I think that got up to about £800 to £1,000 for a session with me. And I had a load of credibility and I was doing really, really well. And I never really had the business sense to think like, oh, there's other people out there that can help me with this. I used to do it all myself, one-man band, trying to figure it out all myself. And whilst I was pretty good at doing it, there's only so many hours in the day, and got completely burnt out over the space of like 3 or 4 years. My diary was full, so I had no complaints financially. It was just more a case of like, oh my God, I'm waking up every morning and dreading going into work, because it was like another person turns up with fear of public speaking and another session, exactly the same thing every day. Like, I was going mind numb. But at that time, I realized I figured out advertising. So then I tried to do a workshop. I get more people to do a workshop. And when I did that, it kind of changed the angle for me, because I promoted that workshop with a video on my website. And I put that video on my website. It took me ages to work out how to do it, by the way. And it took me so long to even get the takes right, because I didn't realize there was such thing as editing. I thought it all had to be done in one take. And it was like a 7-minute video. But I produced this video, sent it out to my list that I've been generating to say, hey, come to a weekend workshop. You can overcome the fear of public speaking together. And we'll kind of like put you into some test scenarios, but make it really friendly. And two of the people that turned up to that workshop were business owners. And they said to me at the end of the kind of like first hour, they said, hey, how did you do that video on your website, by the way? And I spoke to them and talked to them through it. And at lunch, I gave them a bit of a demonstration. And they're like, oh, would you come and film us in our offices and do the same thing so I can have a video on my website? I was like, sure. Yeah, I can probably figure that out. Not knowing anything about videography or anything, just literally done what I did myself. And then they ended up being like, yeah, okay, cool. This is a great video. They paid me a lot of money for it. I was like, this is different. And then I started to work out how to get those videos seen by more people on YouTube and did a lot of SEO work and things like that. And they started to promote their videos, and I was getting really good results for them. I was just really early to market, really, more than anything else. And then I, with one of our clients, I just said, look, I can do this for you on a monthly basis if you want. And I just took them on as a client, basically. Did the same thing for the other one. Then I attracted some more, like I would go to a mastermind, for example, and the person that'd be running the mastermind would be like, can you do that video thing for me as well? And so I ended up just like having more and more of these clients looking to do video work and then get it promoted on YouTube. And I didn't realize, but I kind of built an agency because at that point I was like getting people to help with me to say, right, can you do the SEO bit and I'll do the kind of production bit. And then I had a videographer that would do all the production bit. I was like, cool, I'm now just kind of doing sales and marketing and running the business. And that was going so well. And then YouTube and Google changed all the rules of SEO a few years back, where it was like the hummingbird and the penguin and the panda updates. Any animal that you can think of, it was a new update to go with. Yeah, I could see that you had a similar story. And I was like, do you know what? The SEO game is so volatile. I don't know if I can play in that game for much longer because all of a sudden all our results dipped with our clients. And then one client in particular I took on, I said, look, back in the day, I ran ads for my first business, and I think I can use your video as an ad. Would you let me do it? I'll on my own dime. I'll pay for it myself, but I'd love to give it a go. And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. We'd already created the video assets. So I was like, cool, let's give it a go. And I ran it, spent my own money in the ad account. He didn't have a clue what was going on because it was complicated. Ad buying had become more and more complicated. And then I ran the ad. It's very early on the YouTube ad platform. This is over 10 years ago now. Oh no, not over 10 years, just about to be 10 years ago. And I ran it and I put it in front of his best audience I could find. And I was tracking the number of leads that were being generated. And I could see that we're getting leads in for about £2. And this is my first go. And I said to him, look, after about 2 weeks, I said to him, hey, are you getting good quality leads? And he's like, yeah, these are brilliant. I was like, cool. Okay, perfect. That's good to hear. So how much are they worth? And he was like, well, and he ran the maths and he was like, okay, cool. I think, and then he was a bit cagey about it because we were both being quite cagey because he didn't know how much I spent. And he didn't want to let on how much he had made. So he said, look, I'll pay you £10 per lead. How about that? I was like, sure, let's do it. So I was like costing me £2 and I'll charge him £10. I don't know how much he was making, but I think I worked out later. It was like for every £10, he was making like £200 or something. So he was really happy as well. And we just had a really good relationship. And I ran that same model for a lot of clients that we worked with. And I haven't stopped. I still have that same sort of model now. So we front the ad spend for a lot of clients. They pay for results. I wish it was still the same margin. It's not the same any longer. Like margins have changed. But through that time, we've worked with some amazing businesses and amazing brands. Some of the big brands being like HelloFresh and Mind Valley and those sorts of people. And there's like lots of like other well-known people like Digital Marketer and Frank Kern and Amy Porterfield and all these sort of amazing people as well. So yeah, we've had a really good ride so far. But the game is changing again, you know, and I feel like we're right in that space where we kind of saw about 2 years ago quite a lot of big changes that were on the horizon. We made changes to adapt and grow through that. And now people are starting to realize that, like, holy crap, YouTube's a very different platform than it was 6 months ago. And just because we have access to so much data, as you were saying, we were able to see what was kind of on the horizon and make changes. And I'm so glad we did, because we've got an even stronger agency now, which is really exciting. And I've unpacked quite a bit, I suppose, there.
Yeah.
But if that was too much or too enough.
No, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. No. So just a couple of points I just wanted to draw on what you said there. So first of all, when did you start running ads on Google? Because I started my business in 2002. I actually got the keys to my office New Year's Eve 2001 when I was living back in Colchester. And now everyone out, and there was a Yates opposite my office, right? So everyone was out partying like crazy. And it was the first New Year's Eve. I didn't care. You know, I was just like putting up
buzz. Yeah,
flat packs and, you know, just going crazy. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so exciting. And I nearly went bust like a month later, right? Because I literally didn't know what I was doing. And then in 2002, Google introduced pay per click, right? They introduced ads. They never had them before.
Yeah.
I don't quite know how they made money before, but they didn't have them before. And then I remember like, right, I'm doing this, right? And I had websites, I had clients, and I went straight into Google and I put a budget behind it. And I don't know, like you were maybe a bit later, I don't know, but basically I couldn't spend money. Google would not let me spend money. Now, I think looking back and my knowledge of marketing now was I probably set the ads up wrong. I was probably asking Google to do a cost per click, and Google was saying your clicks are too low. And it was probably that. And I was probably too nervous to say, just go for it and see where we're at. And obviously over the years, like I think you could still set cost per click, but again, you're going to be playing a game of chess to try and get as many clicks as you want if your cost is too low. So I think that's probably my mistake. But we was playing this game and I couldn't spend money. And it was so frustrating. It was like a game of chess. And when we got it right, you know, I think at the time it was like 15 pence in the UK per click. I was like, all of my campaigns, I just wanted them at 15 pence per click. And you could get them.
Your thing, yeah.
You could get them, but you could only get so much, right? I mean, obviously, even then, ads were way cheaper, but you couldn't always get it, right? It was kind of like playing a game. And so, yeah.
You also had this weird thing at that time as well, where it's like, and it still happens today, where you would be on a cost per view basis, and you're like, I'm trying to get that cost per click basis down. I want to pay less and less per click. But then you're like, if I go into that small area where it's like less than 3 cents or 3 pence or something per click, it's just rubbish traffic. And so you almost wanted to say like, I want the cost per click to be above 5 pence, but less than 15 pence or something.
Right.
Because you're like, I don't want the bad quality data or bad quality customers coming through, but you couldn't avoid them. They were like, they were always in that kind of bottom group.
Gotcha.
So we found it like that was really frustrating as well. But
yeah. Okay. So, and what year did you start?
So I gotta remember back. I know that I looked back and said, right, my first ad that I ran on YouTube was 10 years ago in this coming May. Right. So that would have been 2023. So 2013 would have been my first YouTube ad. I believe that is. And then was that right?
So you would have been using Google AdWords back then, right?
Before that, I was using Google Ads. Before that, yeah. So only search. I never really did much on the display network. I could never get the display network to work. It just wasn't for me. Yeah. But yeah, when search was kind of becoming big, that was kind of when I dived into it. You know, that was kind of like when I got into it. But it was like local search just purely for like the London area. And I to this day, I don't think the tracking properly worked. And so I didn't even know if I was doing well or not. And I look back and I'm like, oh my word, there's so many things I would have changed. I could have made it hyper profitable, but it is what it is. I did all right. And
hindsight with marketing,
hindsight
with marketing is huge, isn't it? Because you kind of go, oh, now I get it. Oh, hang on a minute, they've moved on.
Yeah, I just wish I had the knowledge or the nous to know previously to ask more questions to experts, who are other people that are doing it, you know, who was like, guys, how are you tracking all of it? Oh, you do it that way. Great. Thank you. Because there's no such thing as courses and things like that. It was like the Google courses, which are terrible. But the people that are really in the know didn't want to tell anybody because they were making millions just by like being early to the platform. But I wish I'd just been a bit braver, so to speak, and just asked other people, like, how are you guys doing it? Because I was fumbling around by myself and doing a good job, but I could have done so much better, I think, back in the day.
Yeah. But thanks for sharing that journey, because so I can really see the natural progression of kind of how you sort of leaned into YouTube and sort of discovered your agency by accident, which is kind of how I discovered my system. I just kind of kept doing stuff, and then it sort of emerged, right? I was like showing people, and I was saying, well, look, let's get traffic back to YouTube because we want to keep it on the search engine. So we then developed these funnels that did that, and then kind of we had this system, and like I can remember a few years before that thinking, how am I ever gonna like have a business online? How am I going to? And then I thought YouTube obviously was, for me, it was like the biggest fear because I remember having an idea with my friend, like to start a YouTube channel in 2007. I didn't actually start mine until 2016. And I was the guy who got all the penalty slaps, right? I had all the websites. I was ranking websites for my clients, and I was actually doing not exactly the same model, but kind of similar, where instead of, charging people for the traffic, I would sell the website. So I'd go and rank it, and I would be using.
Yeah, it's clever.
Yeah, I'd put them on, businesses for sale. So I'd put them up for businesses for sale. But the thing is, I was doing this so early on that people, people didn't understand online traffic, right? So I would put it up for sale, and people would get on the phone and they'd say, brilliant. I'd say it's ranking for your business on the page 1 of Google for your business pretty much all over the world, because they didn't have local. Like Google didn't understand local back then, right? I'm going back that far. It was kind of like you could rank everywhere, and it was really easy. Like all we had to do was add it to some directories, like Yahoo directories, and it would just rank. But then obviously
a couple of press releases,
press releases, like buy another domain and point the domain to that domain, and it would work. It was kind of crazy, and a couple of things like that, and then as time went on, obviously it got tougher and tougher and tougher, and then we had this kind of problem with all the penalty slaps. So we had to lean into the black hat strategies, which we didn't want to do, but it was the only way to rank. I got delisted. All of my clients got delisted. I nearly lost my business. Yeah. I lost all the staff I had. It was only one, but I lost him. I nearly lost my office. I nearly lost the roof over my head. Right. And then I was like, okay, YouTube seems to be so obvious. And I've been told I could do it, but I didn't think I could do it. My first few videos were diabolical, right? But you get better faster. You sort of get to understand how to look at a camera and talk to it like you're talking to somebody. Like that was the biggest one, right? And then you sort of develop the skill just by doing it, right? I think that was kind of the thing for me. And then we've been on this whole organic journey, and every time I run ads, they're really successful, actually. But I always switch them off because I always get a bit overwhelmed because we have a small team. So so it's kind of like I don't have the problem with ads that a lot of people do, because I think I have a scaling problem because our business is so profitable at an organic level. But I obviously realised that I need to run ads, because the amount of people that ask me what's my ROAS, right? What's my ROI? And I don't have an answer, because everything we get is free. I haven't run an ad for 2 years. So that's why I keep coming to EMC and keep listening to you and thinking, right, I'm going to run ads. So, but yeah, thanks for sharing that journey, man. That's really cool. Now, I think just on that point as well, I think there's certain businesses that will be in scaling mode because they're high leverage, right? So they might be selling software, they might be selling physical products, something like, where it's just like, right, the actual delivery of that item is pretty leveraged. It's not a huge amount of human effort going into the delivery of that. The conception and building it, sure, tons of work and money and energy going into it. But then when you start selling it, it's like, well, if people buy the software, you can have unlimited people buy the software as long as your bandwidth can handle it. Compare that to if you're running an agency or services where you're like, right, okay, well, we charge $5,000 a month, let's say. And I'm not talking about myself or anyone, just like an arbitrary figure. But then you say, right, and there's a lot of human effort within that, but a good profit margin within it as well. And you might hold a client for 12 months on average, let's say. Well, that's a $60,000 sale, And so when you've got $60,000 sale, you compare it back to the ads and be like, well, it cost us 500 quid to get this in a £60,000 sale. And all of a sudden you're like, well, the ROAS on that, how do you calculate it? Because you can calculate it, it's just more difficult. But because you've got a low low leverage because of human effort going into the actual run of the campaign, you'll find that you have a capacity issue quite quickly. So you can have ridiculously high ROAS but a capacity issue, or vice versa, really tight margins because you're growing crazy, and
And then if you're selling software or physical products or something, it's like a different ball game, completely.
Yeah.
And so, you get a lot of people that say, oh, running ads is really easy. It's like, yeah, cool. What's the back end business here? Because you probably will find you've got capacity issues, at some point. There's very few businesses that I know of that have ridiculously high margins and high leverage as well. It's kind of, they don't tend to happen easily, otherwise everyone will be running those sorts of businesses. Yeah.
Funnily enough, actually, we've just started doing a membership site, which is like, instead of like an online course, it's like a Netflix subscription. And the actual deliverables for that in terms of content is what I was already doing anyway, like free weekly calls, group coaching, things like that. Yep. So, but what we're doing is I'm still doing that for free because I think it's a really good way to build a relationship. So people don't have to pay me anything. They can hop on a call with me every week and I give them, like tons of like value. And then obviously we have our high ticket courses, and we're noticing, like, since, recession and things like that, high ticket courses have been converting less. They're still converting, but they're certainly dropped because people are kind of a bit more worried maybe about, that thing that they would buy for $1,000. Because we notice like there's a certain demographic of people that will buy a course for $1,000, right? Some of them will buy it because they want to go deep and they really want to learn it. But there's like a big percentage of people that just want to fill in a few missing gaps, or they just want to kind of go into something for a month and then do something else. There's actually a big demographic of those people. And I'm always trying to drill into people, sit down and do this. It really works. It's really good. And then, but everyone has different agendas, right? And a very, very huge percentage of those people are not going to want to do that, right? No matter how much you tell them to do it, it's like, they're not going to do it. And it always drives me mad, but because I really want people to get results. But it's just, I've started to understand it, especially by asking my audience like questions like, some of them just want a few bits. Some of them just want to get a bit high on your new thing for a month and then go and do something else, right? And that's a big part of it. But that percentage of people are dropping because they don't have the money to be able to do that now, or they have the money, but they're holding on to it because they're like, oh, hang on, let's see what happens with this recession and things like that. When we, so we sort of, I saw Russell Brunson actually talking about the membership model, and that kind of spiked me interest. And we thought, right, we're going to do that. And the deliverables on that is like 4 to 6 hours a month, but it's scalable because we can have thousands of members, hundreds of thousands of members, and still deliver the same amount of content. And that's why I'm thinking, okay, what we do with organic content is really good for building a boutique operation. But but if you to scale, you obviously do need to do ads. So, so that's kind of, where I met you, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. The two, it was almost like you were talking about my process in ad form. And I was like, does he know me? And I don't think you do. I don't think you followed me. Well, maybe you have, but I don't think you have. And I think, oh my God, we're kind of looking at things the same way. So, so moving on then. So you obviously you've been running, and you're a veteran now. Like, you're kind of, like you say, you've been pretty much positioned first all the way along. So you're kind of I would consider you probably the category king of YouTube ads, and you've now developed software that runs this, and we'll dig into that. I've had a little look at your Bidurk a little bit earlier, so we'll talk about that a bit later, because I think this is going to be real key for people to go and check certain amounts of data that you can't get from YouTube, right? But so you've been running this kind of direct response, right, for quite a few years. And obviously at EMC, you were talking about the fact that this has changed. So could you talk a bit about what you noticed, what's changed and why?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, and this is a difficult thing to unpack without like a big slide deck thing, because there's lots of data points and things, but I can do a good job, I think, of breaking it down. So as with all these ad platforms, as more and more people find out about these ad platforms and people are getting great results and the rumors go around, more and more people start to adopt the ad platform. And as more and more competition increases, the CPMs, or the cost per advertising, or CPM stands for cost per mille, cost per 1,000 impressions. That's kind of basically how much you're going to be paying to advertise. And that'll go up and down based on market conditions and lots of other factors that are kind of unclear most of the time. But what you tend to find is that, generally speaking, whilst the CPM can fluctuate and have its variance within day to day, you will also find that over a longer period of time, you'll see that the CPMs just increase. So back in the good days of Google Ads, when it was like dirt cheap to advertise, you could muck up and do terrible things, not even track everything, and still make a ton of profit. Just the way it is, because it's so cost effective. Then everyone finds out about it, and now if you're on Google Ads, it's a science. It's kind of like, it's a difficult thing to run these days. And that's because the cost of advertising just goes up and up and up. And also, you could argue that the customer or the user of YouTube and Google become a bit more savvy as well. They're kind of a bit more like, yeah, I kind of know the deal now. I know what, like, this is the message that most people are talking about, and there's nothing's new here. It's all just bombarding me with the same sort of content constantly, and they kind of start to zone out. And so you have a kind of a double impact there, which is very difficult to measure. But what we found was pre-pandemic, these costs were going up and quite considerably. I was like, okay, cool. I've been through this before with Google Ads. I had a similar thing with SEO, in terms of like a really reliable thing becomes less reliable to run any longer. And then the pandemic hit. And what the pandemic did, it gave us this like false environment, really, whereby all of a sudden loads of advertisers pulled their budgets. So CPMs dropped quite considerably. And at the same time, imagine like all the travel ads you would see just all gone, because no one's traveling any longer. And entertainment gone. No one's going to do any sort of entertainment. They're sticking at home, and that's it. But you had this scenario whereby CPMs dropped, the cost of advertising dropped, far more people at home, bored and online. So you had far more eyeballs to get in front of, which further reduced the CPM a little bit more, but you have much more volume opportunity. And the third thing is they're bored. So they're wanting to buy out of sheer boredom. I bought stuff during the pandemic that I would never have bought before. It's just almost like, oh, I'm so bored. Just buy something, have something turn up at the door. I can play with a new toy, basically. So there's a bit of that. And then you had this kind of like perfect storm, basically, where also people had a disposable income. Lots of people being made redundant or furloughed. And so had this money available to them. They're not spending it on travel. They're not spending it on anything. And they've got all this disposable income and just at home. So you had this like perfect solution, like perfect scenario for advertisers that could sell online courses and things. That's what most of our courses clients do. And we had a world of time. It was a great period, like amazing times. And we made a lot of money there, and being performance-based, we did very, very well and lots of good stuff. Coming out of the pandemic, people go back to work, go back to normality, and we're kind of back in the normal space again. Those CPMs started rising drastically, far less eyeballs on YouTube every single day. All the kind of like things that you had just disappeared. So you went back to normal, basically, which was great. Like, well, not great. You want it to stay in those good times forever, but you're also dealing with a pandemic. So you're like, well, let's get rid of the pandemic. That's probably number one. But number two is like not so great for business, for a company like anyone who's advertising online. And so what ended up happening is that people went back to normal. And then you can like hear of things like the looming recession, and you have like issues with the cost of living, that type of thing. So you almost had this massive backlash of almost the opposite of what happened before. And as a result, you just notice it in your ad spend. So you kind of see these CPMs rise. But the difference is this time around, prior to pandemic and post-pandemic, is that, sure, competition and everything kind of is where we were when we left off just before pandemic. But the difference is that the way that YouTube build you these days, I think, has changed algorithmically. Very intelligent from YouTube, because YouTube have this platform whereby they make their money by showing ads to their users. That's kind of Google and YouTube's kind of raison d'etre, so to speak. It's like they're there to sell you ads or to show you ads that can make money. But there's three people in that scenario, right? You've got YouTube and Google, I'll put them together as the platform whereby they want to make money. But they know they can only make money if they're keeping their user, which is the second part of that scenario, happy. So the user has to come to the platform and have a enjoyable experience. They'll come back time and time again. And so they like using the app and like using the youtube.com. And so, right, okay, so YouTube have got this kind of like dilemma where they're like, we want to show you the users ads, but we don't want to piss off the user, basically. So we kind of got to get that balance right. And some people were like, oh, I see too many ads, but it's not too bad because I get to see amazing content I wouldn't see anywhere else. And I mean, the level of content, they've broken through YouTube to a whole new world where great content creators are going to YouTube just to produce content to make their ads. So they've got this like balance there. But then they've got the third kind of factor, let's say, in that triangle of keeping everyone happy, is that the advertiser. So the people that actually go there and spend the money, YouTube has to keep them happy as well. And so YouTube are playing this balancing act behind like keeping the user happy, keeping the advertiser happy, whilst also generating a great platform, which is not an easy balance to do. But what I noticed recently in the last 2 or 3 years, is that I was looking through the data, and we're lucky because we've worked with so many clients across multiple industries and spent a lot of money. We can look back over all the data, and what we noticed was that there was this trend of data whereby we're trying to figure out what influences your CPM, what influences the actual cost, because we'd see such fluctuations that it can't be down to competition or seasonality or different quarters of the year and budgets and things like that. It couldn't have just been that. There's more to it, because you'd see this spike one day where it'd be $15 CPM, and then the next day it'd be like $100 CPM, and then it goes to $130 CPM, and then back down to $20 CPM. We're like, what on earth is going on? And what we found out was that the data point of your CPM, all of a sudden, and this is a bit of a while back, started to really match your CTRs. So CTR is a click-through rate, the number of people clicking your ad from having seen the ad load up. And when you're running that, it basically says, like, if you, as an advertiser, are creating an ad with a really high click-through rate, whilst the creative team will be high-fiving and being like, woohoo, we've created a great ad because loads of people are seeing the ad and then clicking the ad. And that's kind of what the ad is designed to do, right? That's kind of what you would normally approach an ad with, is to say the ad's job, most people would say this, most advertisers would say this, is like the ad's job is to get the click. Then the website does all the heavy lifting after that point. And I never really subscribed to that, because I think that with a YouTube video, you're generating a brand, you're kind of like having a relationship with the viewer before they decide to click. So you're doing a lot more than just purely like a text ad or something on those lines. So it carries more weight anyway, the YouTube video. But if your click-through rate goes up and then your cost of advertising goes up, you're then, as an advertiser, thinking, well, do I really want a higher click-through rate? Is that actually what the goal is here? Because if we do it, the costs are going to go up. And the cost will go up in a disproportionate way. So it's not like you're saying, okay, well, we got a 50% improvement in the number of clicks coming through to the site. Doesn't mean the CPM would raise by 50%. It could raise by 40%, or it could raise by 100%. And you just don't know. It's really frustrating. But the relationship is that as you increase that click-through rate, the CPMs go up considerably to make it difficult to run the ad. So you think you've created a good ad, but you actually haven't. You've created a worse ad for trying to get people to click. And the reason why YouTube made that change, is because YouTube don't want people clicking away from the website. They want you to stay on the website so they can show you more ads, which is completely understandable from YouTube's perspective. And the user prefers it anyway, because they're not getting people, and I would say put myself in this category and all of our clients in this category, where we run direct response ads saying, hey, we've got this great thing, go click. And the user doesn't want to see those ads. No one wants to really see those ads. I mean, I do, because I like learning from them, but it's not like everyone's like dying to wake up in the morning and go, I can't wait to see another really hard-hitting sales video from YouTube. Like, no one does that. And so it's a bad experience for the user, great experience for the advertiser, but YouTube can see this scenario whereby they got to make the platform better for the user. So they penalize ads that get people to click out of curiosity or anything like that. And so what you need to do is, when you kind of confronted with this data, is think like, how do we approach this differently now? Are we just going to carry on regardless? And this is what most people do, is like head down in the sand and just say, let's just try and create a better ad. Or just let's create more ads, and let's do more testing of different ads creative, and throw more mud at the wall and see what sticks. That's what most people approach it with. I was like, okay, cool. We could do that, or we could go back to basics and look at it and think, actually, what are we doing here? Like, what, with this new set of figures and we've uncovered this data, what do we do now? And that's why we changed everything. And so I'm happy to unpack how we've changed things. But that's kind of like the data changed every rule for us, basically.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And that was the thing when you said that AMC, I was like, oh my God, that is so in line with what we've been doing for years. And So my understanding, the way I like to think of it is that obviously Google and YouTube want to keep people on the platform. And I mean, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, because you've got the data to back this up. And I have the organic understanding from what we see working. I don't have as much data as you, so feel free to just say, Paul, you're wrong. But my understanding is that when you build a good video, when you build know, like, and trust, right, which is kind of vital, especially for brands, right? So, I mean, obviously, if you're doing different types of marketing, like for e-commerce and things like that, know, like, and trust is a bit harder because you're just trying to sell a product, right? But with brands, or with, you know, talking heads, or with people that are themselves on YouTube, which is probably mainly the people you deal with, and so like for me, for my channel, so like if I'm building know, like, and trust, and I'm delivering intense value, and then at the end of the video, I'll put a click, right? I'll put a link, and I'll put a link in the description and in the comments, because depending on the device is where they'll see it. And so from that point of view, obviously I want to leave people in a state where they want to carry on the conversation, right? I don't necessarily want to go hard hitting selling on them. I quite often want to just carry on the conversation, but not bring them off YouTube actually so much, but bring them away into my world. But then we can carry on the conversation by putting them back on YouTube videos, because all the videos that we have kind of cover the same thing, but we can put them in like mini courses and things like that. And then we'll embed them on pages, right? And then the page will have a soft link to purchase a product or to book a call or whatever it is we're doing, right? But it's there. Right. And then what happens is after they opt in, we'll pre-frame it. We'll say, like, you know, this is what we do. This is what we do. Here's a button if you ever want to have a chat with us or anything like that. And we don't do any of this direct response, better call Saul, you know, any of that kind of thing in that scenario. Although I am a bit like that. So I do sometimes do it anyway. But I try not to, right? Well, it actually works much better when I don't. And then the click is way more valuable, because when somebody opts in, one, they buy more often, they don't refund, right? We've got really ridiculously low refund rates, which is kind of blows my mind. And they get to, you know, like I say, they buy more from you because they want to, you know, they want to carry on, and they join your community and they want to be part of that. And, you know, so the way I understood what you just said, and, you know, like I say, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically is that YouTube is looking for us to, obviously they want us to have success with our ads, otherwise it's not going to work for them, right? Like there's no way that they don't want us to not run ads. They don't want us to run ads and not be successful. That doesn't make sense to me, right? Like I wouldn't think that they would want to do that. But what they want is if we get a lower click-through rate, but a higher value on that click-through rate, your CPM, cost per 1,000 clicks or cost per click, is going to be lower, way more valuable, way better relationship, and they're serving up ads that they would prefer, that they already know that we prefer, because we're building a value ad, I suppose is a good way of calling it, like a value ad rather than a, hey, click that link. And then when people are clicking that link in the droves, quite often they're like on something that they don't know what they were on anyway, and you're probably spending a lot less on the ad, but you may have to get loads more leads anyway just for that to work, because a lot of people are kind of being tricked in some cases, not in every case, into getting that click rather than feeling like they want to click it, right? Would you say that was a fair analysis? Or
I think, yeah, to paraphrase, I think that like the way that I would look at this is to say, I think YouTube is setting it up so they're thinking, I just want a better experience for the user. So what they're going to do is they're going to say, if someone clicks, we're going to make it more costly for you. And so it means just advertisers have to pivot a little bit to say, all right, that's fine. The value of a click has gone up, or the cost of a click has gone up. So we've got to now increase the value to us for every click. So we know that, like, if someone goes to our site, we know they're pretty much pre-qualified to take the next step we want them to take, and they're high enough quality for us as well. I mean, by the way, I don't think we're there yet. I think we're about 6 months away. So this is the perfect time to kind of like work out the strategy. But I would say that there's so many people that are running ads, not really giving value, and then holding all that value back to once they've done an opt-in or something, and then pretty much giving them crap anyway. But like, those people you'll see far less of them. You're starting to see far less of all these people. Like, I don't know, I see it on YouTube, not on YouTube so much, but on Facebook, people like taking screenshots and being like, oh, look at this 12x ROAS. That's all gone away. You don't see that very often. Or if they do, it's like, I made one sale for £25,000 and I spent £400 worth of advertising. Like, well, great. That's one sale. That could have easily not happened. And then you'd still be £400 down. And so it's like people just frame things up. And if you look at the data close enough, you're like, okay, well, it shows your true colors, so to speak. But like, so I think that the way to look at this is that the platform is ripe for change. No one, like, when you kind of see things that don't flow naturally, like the user's not happy to see a certain type of ad, it's only been a matter of time before their platform figures that out and says, yeah, we understand the user. We want the user is a priority here. The advertiser is definitely not the priority. The advertiser pays the bill, sure, but they'll figure it out. They'll know how to play on this platform. And whether it means like more brand advertisers play on the platform, I don't know. But definitely the approach to take now is to pre-qualify people prior to getting them to click. So you want to kind of be very clear with people. Here's what the offer is. Here's what the deal is. And then if you kind of start realizing that, like, hang on a second, if I start creating content-rich ads, that does most of the pre-qualifying for you anyway. Mention the price perhaps in the ad as well, because that's a great qualifier, and get people to buy from you. But look at YouTube as almost like, this is a platform where you can build a brand and get people to know you, like you, and trust you, but most importantly, consider buying from you. Like, I haven't worked out exactly the perfect timing of a video just yet, and I don't think I will, because it's different for every audience. But if you can get 50% of your audience to watch past 5 minutes of a video, I think you've got a really, really strong video. That's saying, of all the people that started the video, 50% of people are still watching past 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a very good indication that you've created a great video. And they've got to know you, like you, and trust you in that 5 minutes. And they're probably starting to consider, all right, well, this person seems to know their stuff. I would be open to a pitch from them. And you've kind of, as the advertiser, you've earned that right to put a pitch in front of them that they would consider. And I think that that's a really interesting viewpoint for any platform, is to say, if you can get half your viewers to watch past 5 minutes, that's a great indication that you've got a great video on your hands. And I think that that's something that could be like a bit of a benchmark for people to focus on, because then they can say, right, 5 minutes of pure content, give as much value as you can. It could be a little bit longer than that. And then if you can get someone to that point and deliver them a call to action at that point that's relevant, and they take the next step with you, that's, I think, where the sweet spot is for YouTube at the moment, is to say, give good value, get them to know, like, and trust you. They're already considering buying from you, and then put your call to action together, because people are like, cool, I was open to that call to action anyway. And now I feel like I'm going there with intent, and the chance of someone clicking is much lower compared to like the big hypey sales pitch. But it's got a much lower click-through rate, therefore a much lower CPM. But if they go through the website, they're going to be so much more valuable. They're likely to the conversion rate will be really, really high, and they're going to be so much more valuable for the company. So it's kind of front loading so much more of the experience into the ad itself. And if you start to adopt that methodology, then the world of creativity opens up to you, because you're like, well, hang on a second. Now it's about creating an amazing experience. Well, I can do that in not so many different ways. I can give them an amazing experience on YouTube, knowing that they're going to click through to and buy my stuff at some point anyway. But all the people that lead with value and lead with content, all the content creators out there, like I'm talking about pretty much every business owner, can now approach YouTube in a very new way, you know, because I say, I can create great content. I can put it in front of my audience. And with the type of ads we're talking about, you can still use things like keyword targeting. You can say, right, as soon as my customer types this stuff in, I'm going to provide them with such good value and content that they're going to want to do business with me. They're going to consider the offer that I've got for them. And that's the whole approach, is to say, just lead with the best experience you can give to someone. They'll trust you by opening the door into their world, and you're able to walk through, give them the best experience you can, and you're going to stay in their world forever at that point. You're going to become that brand they really trust and like. And you can see that for yourself as well, because there's certain people I'll go to YouTube, and if I'm about to buy a computer, for example, I wouldn't buy it straight from the manufacturer. I'll go to a YouTube channel owner that I trust, who's done hundreds of reviews before. I'd watch their video and say, well, what do they think about this computer? Is it really worth it? And if they say it's good, then I'll go buy. That's kind of my almost my sales rep, helping me make a much better informed decision about the product itself. And that's kind of you're positioning yourself as that authority for people to say, if you want to learn more about like what it is you want to learn about, then I'm your person for that, and you can establish yourself as that personality. So you get the best of both worlds, of the organic and the ad platform, driving you really high quality customers and leads very profitably.
Fantastic. I mean, that's so cool. And I know we're kind of getting tight on time. We're coming up for the hour, but I know you had an acronym called Educate, right?
Yep.
Would you mind just briefly going through that? Because a lot of what we do, what my audience do, is kind of like learning how to structure a video. And obviously with what you do with your Educate, it kind of fits in with that. Would you mind going through that?
Of course, yeah. And by the way, I'm not tight on time, so if you want to go a little bit longer, we can.
Yeah,
no problem. Yeah.
Okay,
so
cool.
The Educate is like 7 letters, ADUCATE, and it's a great way of structuring any video you do. Especially content. You could use it for like if you wanted to create a VSL or created any sort of video. It can work really, really well. So every letter, so it's an acronym. So every letter is a word. And the first letter is, well, before you get into Educate, when you teach someone something, you're going to want to have some sort of framework or blueprint or something you can share with people. Educate is a great example. So it sounds like quite meta here, because Educate is like a 7-letter word to help you structure your videos. And now we're unpacking it. So we've kind of like framed up the fact that I've got this Educate system. Works really well. We use it for all of our clients. So you can big up the system. And as soon as you have a system or a blueprint or a method or whatever you want to call it, your proprietary way of doing things, then it means that for the user, they immediately feel like, cool, you've been around the block, you've got your system down. And also you can brag about the system because you're not bragging about yourself. You're saying like, this is a great system to use. It's very difficult to say, I'm a great person to follow. Very different endorsement there. But the A stands for your aim. So you start with a framework and think like, I'm going to teach them about this. That's your inspired framework thing you want to talk to people about. Start there and think, I'm going to teach people, and Educate just your framework to help you continue teaching, and just start teaching immediately. Start giving value immediately. Don't feel like you have to hold back, or don't introduce yourself or introduce the topic or introduce like a stinger and a logo. Get rid of all of that. Just start by like, if you say, here's the 3 best ways to run a business in 2023, start the first word should be like, all right, first way. And then you get into the content immediately. Like, it's so important you do that, because otherwise the viewers just leave, or they skip through to the part of the video where you do begin like that. So you want to kind of get into the content immediately. No preamble, no intro. You can cover all of that whilst you're teaching.
Yeah.
So whilst you're teaching, you want to talk about the customer's aims. So the aim for the viewer is going to be like their desires and their wants and what it is they like you can teach them, basically. So if you think about it being like they've got their immediate wants, they've got their so you want to like dig into is to say, right, what's their immediate wants? What's like, right, I've come to YouTube to learn this. But what's also their desired outcome? Like, if they learn that, what will that mean for them? What's the kind of the outcome for them? Like, oh, well, if you do that, then I can have a more successful business. If they figure out my lead gen, then I can have more of a successful business. Cool, that's the desired outcome. But there's going to be an emotional benefit about that as well. Like, what you're going to feel as a result of that? It's like, oh, well, I can finally relax, actually, or I can finally feel more confident or more certain in my future. Great. Okay, cool. So you're selling certainty to people. That's kind of what you're selling. But you also want to tie it into their demographics and their psychographics. Like, so who are they? Like, how do you talk to them? Like, are they a business owner, entrepreneur? How would they class themselves? And once you've got those 4 points, so it's the demo and their psychographics, it's their immediate wants, the desired outcome, and the emotional benefit. If you wrap that up into like the first 10 seconds of your video, or doesn't have to be the first 10 seconds, sorry, it could be like you're teaching, but then you're saying, by the way, the reason why this whole system works so well is because if you are an entrepreneur who's looking to get more leads, so you can grow your business and finally realize that you've built a legacy and you've got that certainty in your life, then this is going to be the thing that unlocks all of that. This system here is going to unlock all of that. So you can kind of unpack the aim in a matter of 10 seconds at some point in the video, but you want to kind of unpack it like that. So you're teaching and then just pull this in. Then what you want to do is talk about the D of educate, which is the difficulty. So here is where you kind of tap into their current challenge. So what's the thing that's stopping them from getting that lead gen? Or what's the thing that's stopping them from getting their health or the relationship they want, or I don't know, whatever it is they're trying to achieve. What's the actual current challenge they're having? Like, oh, I can never get it going. Like I've tried loads of things. I just can't get it working. Then again, like you did with the emotional benefits, now you want to do the emotional pain. Like they tried a load of things that it hasn't worked. How's that making them feel? Like it's really crap, but like describe that feeling in a way to them that makes them feel like, yeah, that's exactly how it feels. Because they'll really feel like you know them at that point. But then you want to twist the knife a little bit more once you've stuck it in, so they feel pain. And then you want to just let them realize the urgency of this issue, because they stand to lose far more if they don't figure this out. If they don't fix this problem, it's going to get worse and worse. So if they don't figure this out and they've got weight issues, for example, they're going to be generating more weight and it's going to be even harder to get that weight back off. Or if you don't figure out the lead gen right now, you're going to get so frantic and so busy with trying to generate more revenue from your existing customers, you'll probably lose those customers. And then you're really in a bad place because you haven't got that deal flow and that comfort and the fact that you've got more business coming through. Or if it's your health, like time's running out to do something about this, generating whatever it would be, you're kind of wanting to say, look, you stand to lose even more if you don't figure this out. So that's like kind of the difficulty. You're just putting some urgency into the fact that you've got to learn this, or like it's worth paying attention to the video.
Yeah.
Now, then you move into the U of educate, and this is the undertaking. So the undertaking is where you're going to position yourself shortly as the expert in their eyes, not just yet, but you want to explain to them, like, you realize that there's people out here that either succeed with it or struggle with it. So if it's weight, one thing. If it's generating leads, how are there some businesses that are just able to generate leads without even worrying about it? And some people really struggle with it. Like, what is the difference? And so you're building these two different identities, and you're saying there's some people that can do it, some people that don't do it. And then you've got to tell people why it's so important that you help the people that can't do it. Like, it can't just be like, oh, because it's in my financial best interest. If I can help them, I can get some money off them. That's maybe true. But you also need to kind of explain to them, like, what's deep within you, what's your values, and why is it so important you help these people that are struggling? And not just like an arbitrary figure. It's like the reason why you get up out of bed in the morning and want to work on this, and what it is that's like, what do you stand for and stand against, and what's important to you? Because you need to describe that to the customer so they feel like, oh, you're on my side, and I can believe that what it is that motivates you is helping people like me, and I get it. So that's kind of what people feel comfortable with.
And just to highlight something from what you just said there. So in your speech at MC, you had this video you showed us, right? And you were showing this guitar dude, like sort of long-haired, rocky sort of dude. And the two examples you had there, which stuck in my mind, was, are you going to be a dabbler, or are you going? And you showed a graph of the person who puts in the work and becomes a great guitar player, and then the dabbler, and you like broke those out really fast, really concise. And you kind of, the only one you want to identify is you don't want to identify with the dabbler, right? You want to identify with the guy who has the best guitar life, and then you had all these cut scenes of them all like meeting up and getting together and having all this fun time as a great guitar player, and you kind of immediately go, well, I want that, and I don't even play guitar. It's like, well, I do a little bit.
I want to play guitar.
Now I want to play guitar. But obviously those ads are really only showing to people who are in that demographic. So kind of, if I was thinking it and I don't play guitar, I could see the power behind that, right?
Yeah, exactly. What you're moving towards, so you're getting them to micro buy into things, right? This is why this educate system's taken so long to get right. But you're moving them into this idea that, like, if they can agree that from the outside looking in, it's like, well, there's two types of people. There's people that can nail it and people that can't nail it. Like people that are succeeding and not succeeding. And like, if you can then describe their behavior, because everyone can modify their behavior, everyone can change their behavior. But it's like, if you can say, oh, these people act like this and that's why they're not getting the result, and these people act like this and that's why they do get the result, then it's like, oh, it's simply a case of changing my behavior. Fine. It's not something deep within me that I can't figure this out. But what you want to do is you assign the behavior to an identity. That's the trick. So you can say, look, everyone knows there's people that can do this and people that can't do this. And this is the behavior that they'll do. The dabbler. They dabble around, they muck around with it, and then they put the guitar. Nothing wrong with that. It's just, that's what they do. But they're never going to progress. If they want to progress, then something wrong with that. But if they're just quite happy just nerdling around on the guitar at the weekend, all good. Like, let them have fun. So it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to come with negative connotations. It's more just like, there are those people. Now, if you want to actually learn how to play guitar and get good at it, then that's never going to help you. It's fun, but it's never going to help you. And so it's kind of, you're identifying the behavior, assigning a name to it, which kind of assigns an identity to it. So the dabbler versus the real guitar player. Could be the same for any industry. And then you're saying to them, so we can all agree, basically, that there are those two people. And everyone's going to be like, well, it's difficult to not agree with that because that's kind of pretty obvious. So they've agreed to it. It's like a micro agreement that they've said, yeah, cool, I agree with you that there are these two people exist. And then you kind of say, well, if you agree with that, which one are you? Because now we're saying, if you ever do a lesson where you start to muck around, don't actually learn, like don't do it the way that I'm going to share with you, you're a dabbler. And you're like, oh, okay, I don't want to do that. Like, if you join the gym or don't join the gym, the person that doesn't join the gym is kind of making a decision to say, well, maybe I'm the non-gym goer. Maybe I'm not the fitness person I thought I was, so, but you've identified like, oh, look, if I was to get the stats on it and say, here's all the people that go to the gym and here's all the people that don't go to the gym, I'm probably going to find some stats that'd be like, well, if you want to be fit and healthy, and I took a kind of a population and said all the people that go to the gym, I can pretty much guarantee that those people that go to the gym are going to be more healthy than the people that don't go to the gym. And so I can say, right, one of the behaviors they have is that they go to the gym or not. They're like a gym goer and a non-gym goer or something like that. And so the one behavior is going to the gym is going to help you get fit and healthy, for example. That's like not that hard. Like the stats will prove that out. So you're saying, right, which one are you? Are you a gym goer or you're not a gym goer? And now you're saying, well, now I got an identity of a non-gym goer. And that's like, oh my word, that gets associated with not being healthy and not being fit and that type of thing. So you're kind of identifying the behavior, saying these two types of behavior for why people succeed and fail. And at the thing that everyone finds important on this video, or all the viewers would agree that's important, like learning to play the guitar. Like, I have no problem if someone's a dabbler or a real guitar player. It makes no difference to me because I'm not even caring about guitar. But it would make a difference to me if I really cared about guitar, and especially my own identity. But then you've got to explain like why it is so important that you help the dabblers become real guitar players. What's deep within you that's creating that? And that's going to have to be an individual thing. It has to have a good reason why. There could be a backstory to it. There could be something else. It could be something you're just really passionate about. Because it's going to change the world in some way if we could have everyone actually becoming real guitar players. And for them, it's like the most important thing is community. Like one of the big things for Tony is that he never had that when he was growing up. He never had people around him helping him and having fun with him playing guitar. And that's what he missed. And he didn't realize you could have it until much later on. He's like, I don't want anyone else to have to go through that playing guitar by themselves and not having fun with it. And so that's what's really important to him. So you're going to find your own value and find kind of like why it is so important to you to help these people. Because then what you can say is you've gone on that undertaking to say, I'm going to figure out this issue, and you kind of start that, you undertake that mission, so to speak. And now, before you get into that mission, you've got to explain like, well, why you? Why is it that I would ever find that interesting? Why would you be the appropriate person to try and figure this problem out? Because loads of people come before you to try and figure this out, and no one else has figured it out. So why you? And that's when you pull in your credibility. So that's the C of educate, and the letter C of educate. And you've got to explain why you are qualified. And it doesn't have to be qualified because you've got lots of experience in that area. It's normally works against you. It's kind of saying your unique experience and why you have a different point of view than everyone's gone before. So it's like easy one to talk about, but like Elon Musk, for example, when they were looking at Tesla and like the batteries in the car and things. There's like, oh, it's going to be way too expensive to get all these batteries for the cars. And then he was like, well, let's look at the raw materials for a second. And you need to get lithium, and you need to get like a casing for it. And I don't know how batteries work, but I know there's two elements. And then you realize that if you go and buy these things separately and put them together yourself, it drops the cost astronomically. And it's like all of a sudden batteries in those cars became a viable thing that it wasn't beforehand. So it's breaking down into those fundamentals. But he could only see that because he had that different point of view of being like kind of like having a lot of experience of manufacturing and a lot of experience of like going down to the fundamentals. And often when you do that as well, when you have a unique point of view and unique perspective on things because of your background, you're able to discover the real root cause why people aren't getting the result. And if you can, that's the bit that needs to be really figured out. So it's like saying, why are these people really not getting the result? Surely they've got the wrong behavior, but why do they become dabblers in the first place? What is it that happened there? And for YouTube advertising, because we talked about it here, I can say, well, the real reason why people aren't really succeeding with their YouTube ads is not because they can't create good ads or good offers or have good finances. They don't realize the relationship between CPMs and CTRs because no one's ever talked about it before. Like if you create ads like this, whilst everyone's doing that, it's actually the wrong way to do it these days. And when people hear that, like, that's the root cause. That's the reason why I'm not getting the result. I've tried everything else and I've been approaching it slightly incorrectly. And now maybe I can unlock this. So if you can identify that root cause for people, it feels like finally someone with a unique point of view saw it because no one else was seeing it. Everyone else was kind of used to the traditional model. You're able to break that because you can see things differently. And that's your credibility. So people just have to go, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Now what do I do about it? And you've kind of opened up that loop to people, which is when then you can say, right, you're continuing to teach this model and say, that's why this model exists. But what can be useful if you are going to do a call to action in your video, the A-T-E of educate could be your way of bridging into a call to action that is a soft, it doesn't have to be a soft sell, but it's a very much like an elegant journey into the sale. So A is your adaptation. So you can say like, I've taught you everything about this model so far and it works ridiculously well. But when I first created it and what I've taught you so far, when I did that, it was very effective. Don't get me wrong. It just wasn't ready for mass consumption. Either it cost too much, or the speed of delivery was a bit too slow, or quite complex, and it was kind of it needed to be simplified, or just the access. It was like you could work with me one-to-one, but that was the only way of doing this. And so there was a drawback, not based on how effective the solution was. The solution has to be 100%, or not 100% effective, but very, very effective. It's like this is something that actually works, but the way it gets delivered means it's quite difficult to get out to the masses. And so then it's a case of saying, well, in the adaptation, you need to talk about how you managed to fix that problem. So you say, this is the problem that was the next thing that I had, is that I had this really good system, but I wasn't ready for mass consumption. So I had to tweak it and change it. And so we did multiple work on it, and then kept on improving things. And now finally we've managed to fix it so that it is highly effective and can be consumed by the masses. So that's your adaptation. By doing that, you're kind of highlighting a slight drawback of the product. And that's really important you do that because it builds trust with people, because I feel like, oh, you're going first, you're telling us why there's a slight drawback, but it also gives you an element or an opportunity to bring across the element of the product that's the strongest. You say, it's really, really effective. Don't get me wrong, that's kind of never been compromised. It's just now it can be delivered to the masses. Then you have your trust of T for educate. Trust is building up like other people like the viewer are getting great results. So it feels like, all right, people like us are doing this, which is a big persuasive social proof element. So you feel like, right, other people are doing this, other people are getting great results. It's got a lot of social proof around it. And then the last part is the exit. So the exit is of the E of educate is the call to action, basically. And at this point, you want to let people know that now is kind of the time to go and take action. So you want to produce your core offer. You want to put that price in to reduce like the number of people clicking, because you're going to be a natural disqualifier. And you can say who it's for and who it's not for. If there's any bonuses that pre-handle objections that people might have, add them in. Adding guarantee to make them feel certain of the result and feel safe. And then add that tension again to say, look, as I said earlier, if you don't figure this out, it's going to be a huge problem. It's going to get worse for you. and then do the call to action. Now, when you do that exit plan or that stack, it can be done in the most casual way, but it still be very, very powerful. So you can say like, look, if you are interested about fixing this problem for good, here's the offer I've got for you. It is a kind of a 3-day workshop, or it's an online course, or it's a webinar that you turn up to, or it's a strategy call, whatever it's going to be. The price point for that is $100, for example. But this is for serious people. This isn't for people that are kind of tire kickers or aren't going to be interested in taking the next step. It's for real kind of people that are looking to actually properly fix this problem, and I can see the benefit of that. And by the way, when you do this, because we just want to make sure you get the best results possible, we've also included 3 bonuses. That means that, and the bonuses need to really handle all the problems that the person would perceive there would be in the future. So it's like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, we've got trainings around how to overcome that. And then you say, and also it comes with a complete guarantee anyway. So if you are unhappy at any point within the next 30 days or 60 days, we'll give you a full refund. And the reason I mentioned this in this video is because I just want you to get the result. I don't want you to be living with this problem any longer, or the problem getting any worse. So if you are interested, click the link, go to the website, make your payment for $100. I think you're going to absolutely love it. And I look forward to working with you. And so you kind of it can be done in a casual manner. You know, it doesn't need to be done in a hard-hitting drop down price and the bonuses. And for one time only, it's kind of the natural tension is that you're saying, who are you going to be? Are you going to be a dabbler, or are you going to be a real guitar player? Are you going to be what identity you're going to have based on this decision you're making right now in the video? This decision is not about buying this product or not. This decision to buy the product says more about your identity than it says about the decision to click. So that's the kind of whole educate process in place.
That is brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that, because there's so much inside there, guys. And what I'll do is what you would have seen actually is I would have put up all the different letters and what they all mean, and you know. And Tom obviously usually does this with a slide deck, so he's gone through that for us without that, right? But
and one of the things, frantic notes,
taking frantic notes, yeah. So I'll obviously have that on the screen, but yeah. So what I want to talk about, one last thing, actually, just one point on that, and then we'll talk about your Bedirt, because I'm really intrigued about that. Cool. Also anybody who wants to kind of like learn more from you as well, we'll talk about that. But there was one point about the price, and I've heard you say this a couple of times, and you mentioned it earlier, and I skipped past it because I thought we were a little bit tight for time, but I just want to quickly ask you about that. So do you think it's a good idea? Because I noticed this, right? This is something that I worked out quite early on. So when I was developing my system, before I put up a course, in fact, I did put up a course. I tried to sell it. I couldn't sell it. I couldn't give it away, right? I was kind of just putting up a course, right? I kind of knew a little bit, but I wasn't getting massive results. And I put up a course and I was trying to give it to people in Facebook groups, and they were like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then I'd look at the stats and they weren't even opening it, right? And then I realized straight away, oh, hang on a minute, you've got to learn how to do this stuff and show people. So I started showing people. I think I showed the first couple of people for free, like friends and network. And then I basically was hired as a consultant, and my consultancy went into a course. So instead of hopping on a call every week and training them, it would be more about goal setting. And then they'd say, all right, I need this, this, and this. I'd go, right, I'll go and create a video. And that's kind of like the natural progression of my course, my first course that I created. But when I was doing this one-to-one consultancy, I haven't done it for like 2 or 3 years. One of the things was like, I had a webinar, right? So someone would come on a webinar. Then I would do this thing of, let's not talk about the price. Just get on the call. Let's do a strategy session. Let's do this, right? And that was what everybody was doing. And you'd go through the call, and I'd have a script that I got from Sam Ovens at the time. And it was kind of this really cool script. It worked really well. And then it would be like the price. And then they'd go, oh, you know, it's like, because I knew that I was going to have to work really closely, really hard with them for 8 weeks. So I was charging like $10,000 or $15,000. And they were like, oh, I thought it'd be like $2,000 or $3,000. And then that would be, the whole thing would be a waste of time. So I said, right, this is the price. If you want to talk about this, get on a call. And then I would have to pre-qualify people not to get on a call, if that makes sense. So I would be like getting them to the point of wanting to book a call. And then it would be like, from there on in, the funnel was disqualifying people so that 1 in 2 would convert. And I put in the price, and everybody was saying, don't do that, don't do that. And I was thinking, but why? If you're going to go all the way to the end of that funnel, and then somebody's going to be on a call and you're going to tell them the price and they can't afford it or they don't want to do it, And everyone was saying, well, no, that's your fault because you haven't built enough of a kind of need inside of them. And I thought, some people just won't pay that price, right? It's just not going to happen. And, maybe there was a fault on my part as well, maybe there was, but I would get to that point and then I just decided, right, pre-qualify. So I'd say, right, this isn't a good fit for you. This isn't a good fit for you if you do this. We only want to work with people. This is the price. We're going to treat this as an interview. I will give you value. And then I had to start charging for the call, right? Charging for the application, because then it was kind of, and then we got to like 75% conversion on the call because everybody getting on the call was pretty much primed to do so. And that was kind of a natural progress for me. So sorry, I was a bit long-winded, but I wanted to kind of give you that as a context so that you'd understood where I was coming from. But basically, you did say earlier about putting the price. So would you put a price for a high ticket, like for a coaching thing? Would you put that? Or would it be irrelevant? Like, would you just state that early on, or would you state it towards the end, or would you not always state it?
Good question. And to be honest, like, I wouldn't say that my sales approach is like the strongest, and probably there's far more people out there that will be able to give you much better clear advice around that. From a standpoint of lower ticket items, so looking at like sub $100, I put the price point front and center, let them know like what a bargain and what a deal they're getting as a result of this. Higher ticket, sometimes the value needs to be explained to people prior to them understanding what they're actually buying or what they're investing in. There's arguments for either way. I think if you've got like ridiculously high lead flow and you've got kind of so many leads coming through, I would be like, yeah, cool, put the price point up in front and center and say it's 10 grand, 15 grand before working with them. If it's kind of a case of there's one or two people would apply every month or something, then I'd say, cool, I probably wouldn't put the price point in there because I would do my damnedest to sell them over the phone. So it kind of comes down to deal flow, I think, more than it does down to actually like the positioning of things. Because you might say, well, I'm happy to spend a bit more time on the phone, and that's probably your best closing route. So let's say, for example, you had 20 people that saw the page without the price point, and then 15 of them applied to talk with you. I think you could close more in that scenario, like 15 people that don't know the price point, than 2 people that book a call with you because they see the price point and they're a bit shocked by the price. And 2 people register and they probably close one of them. I prefer to kind of try and close one out of 15 and 1 out of 2, even if they've been pre-qualified, the 1 out of 2. So it's just different on deal flow. I think that's kind of probably more of a question I would have thought. Yeah.
I mean, maybe that was more of a question from a point of view of like, because the way I always run my business is lean and automated, right? So if I'm the one getting on the calls, obviously I'm employing staff and, we're going to have a few more, but so that's obviously not for you. That was kind of just a mindset thing. And I get a lot of these questions as well from my audience. So I was kind of, curious as to your take on that. So I really appreciate it. So it's kind of interesting. It wasn't what I was expecting. So that's kind of cool. So, so obviously like Educate is really good way to kind of build an ad, and there's kind of like a real structure to that. And now I just want to move on to data, because obviously YouTube gives us so much data, right? We can get so much data, and you've spoke about this software. I've seen you mention it a few times online that you developed, where you basically can read more data. And what I was thinking with my audience, right? Because we have the magic funnel, is like we would choose the best videos that are kind of organic, and we would promote them in, is it called in feed now? Where it's like, we used to call it display, didn't we? But it's now in feed.
Well, so we went from display to discovery to in feed. Yeah, it's how
in feed. Yeah, because I've been saying display, and one of my students said, "No, it's in feed now." I was like, "Okay, I'm training people on something that I don't actually know." So we were thinking of kind of boosting those, the ones that are working, and again, that will get us more brand recognition, that will get us more lead flow, and it will, that was kind of what I picked up from what you said as well, is to do that to start with, and obviously, but we can get so much data, obviously, from YouTube, but we can't get, there's certain data we can't get, right? So could you talk a little bit about Bidurk and what that does?
Yeah, so it's a piece of software whereby you can connect your YouTube account. And this really works for people that have got over, let's say, 20 videos at least. Like, we're normally dealing with like 500 videos there or thereabouts. But anything above 20 videos, it still works. What it'll do is it aggregates your data and then looks at it from a standpoint of which themes of content are working well for you and which themes of content don't work well for you. What is generating the most amount of retention? And we look at retention in 3 different ways. So there's watch time, how long a user has been watching your video for on average, what percentage of the video they consume on average, and then also we tend to look at like the 5-minute and 8-minute mark, and also look at the intro mark as well, to be like, compared to all the other videos you have, how well is that video performing for getting people to watch past a minute? How many watching past 5 minutes, then watching past 8 minutes, and all of a sudden you can kind of benchmark against all your other videos, like what content seems to really resonate with people, and then also how to improve that content as well. Like, there's no good tools out there that we found that were any good at kind of analyzing whether the content's any good, and then how to improve that content as well. So that's kind of like one of the major things, is looking at like the retention and how the video is performing. Could it be improved? And the topic you're covering as well. But then also it'll analyze your videos based on social cues. So like how many subscribers are generated, how many likes and comments are being generated from those videos, and which ones are winning from that department. And then also it'll analyze your some other things. So like, as people consume your content, every now and again there's a big spike in retention. People would like watch and rewatch a certain section of the video again, and we call them magic moments. And when we see a magic moment, we'll kind of identify what happened in that magic moment. So we'll say, right, cool, here's this big spike. Let's view it and watch it and see what happened in that video. And then we'll be able to kind of analyze why people love certain aspects of your videos. So we did this with like Alex Hormozy, for example, and with one of his videos, he gives a quote. So Alex went through our software, runs the software on his YouTube channel, and then we kind of like downloaded it and showed him that, like, okay, cool, at this point in the video, there's a big spike in retention. And what he was doing is he was giving a quote in the video. He would say what an expert once told him. And he says it very quickly, and it's quite a long sentence, but doesn't put it up in the captions underneath or anything. And so viewers just went back time and again to listen to what he said like 3 or 4 times over. So there's this huge spike in retention. And so I was like, right, for future videos, just add more quotes in, add more things in, because you're going to get these big spikes in retention. Likewise, if you change scene or share your screen or give a tutorial, or those sorts of things will get natural spikes as well. So you kind of want to try and educate as much as possible, because people go back over that content over and over again. I think it's got a lot of other features added to it as well. But really what it's helping you do is identifying your best content, showing how to improve that content. And then also, if you put like $5 a day or $10 a day behind one of your videos, what sort of impact it would have for you and your business. So you can really just like cherry pick the videos that are doing well for you, make a little short list, put $5 a day behind each one of those videos. I tell you what, like the results we're getting are just, out of 10 years I've been doing YouTube ads, this is some of the best return on ad spend I've ever seen. And I'd say that twofold. One, to excite people and say like, cool, this is great. But also it's like the opportunity for you as a brand, as well as driving leads and sales in an elegant format. Like, I think there's 2 types of business owners. There's 2 types of business owners that promote their businesses. One who's a direct response, really good tele-shopping style personality that can absolutely nail direct response. Great, good for them. For everyone else, like everyone else, like myself, who can give good content and good value, but probably aren't the best direct salespeople in the world, then at that point it's like, great, rely on your content, because you can just promote your content and get it out in front of more people. They're going to get to know, like, and trust you, and would consider buying from you. And it just allows you to really grow that brand. And that's kind of the end goal, really. Like, I don't think advertising is the best way for most businesses to operate long term and rely on really big ad spend. I don't think that's a great strategy. I think it's like, you can run ads to get momentum, but at some point you want your YouTube organic to take over. You want like your organic to be performing so well that your ads are just a drop in the ocean. You're like, well, we might as well turn them off. Like, what's the point in running them? Because we've got such big organic audience. But it's not going to get there overnight. So you run your ads to get there far, far quicker. but yeah, you're going to want to rely on lots of different ways of driving traffic, not just paid advertising, but you want to have that like owned media. So have this massive YouTube presence and on other platforms as well, a massive brand, and that earned media as well. So it's like, right, you're getting huge reach by sparking off this activity and having lots of people kind of watch your videos and things, and have this huge subscriber base as well. But then also you want to have like many more people doing referrals and word of mouth and growing your business in that way, and maybe some affiliates as well. And you want the business to grow organically at the end of the day. That's kind of the end goal. But to get there, you're gonna have to run some ads in the meantime. So it's kind of like I run ads as a mean to an end. Let's build your brand so it's so big that you have the organic huge audience, and then you just never have to worry about traffic again. That's kind of like the end goal. You can't scale this up like crazy. You can't go spend $50,000 a day like we would do on some other campaigns with clients. But you can spend $100 a day probably topping out for some of your videos. But that's $100 a day. It really accumulates quickly as you're growing a massive audience, and that's what's so exciting about this whole strategy.
Fantastic. I'm going to have to check that out. So anyone watching this, go to bidirk.com, and you recommend if you've got at least 20 videos. Did I get that right?
Yeah, 20 videos is kind of a bit of a minimum, really. The website is bidurk.com.
Bidirk.com.
It's a funny name. Bidirk.com. It's a funny old name, but it's got its reasons I won't get into right now. Long story. It's a great brand. And if you go to bidirk.com, you can go and grab your own free X-ray, and you can go through the analysis and see how useful it can be for your business.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to get an X-ray. And guys, if you've got 20 odd videos on your channel and you want to go and sort of check this out, have a look at it. And I haven't done it yet. I'm going to full transparency, but I'm going to do it. And we are going to wrap things up. So we literally done an hour and a half. And Tom, look, we booked an hour call. So I really do appreciate you going over, Tom.
Of course.
Last thing as well, like I know you run an agency. I know you're very selective with the clients you've got. So your website is viewability.co.uk. But if somebody wants to learn more from you, continue the conversation, find out if they're a good fit, anything like that, what would you recommend?
So, we have our YouTube channel. So you can go to the Tom Breeze YouTube channel.
I'll put a link in the show notes to that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we're releasing more content and doing a much better job this year of that as well. Just seeing what we're doing for clients. We're like, we want a piece of this ourselves. There's that. But I'd probably recommend so we have Viewability, which is our big agency that works with lots of big brands and that type of thing on performance basis. And we are very selective about who we work with there. Yeah. There's under Bidirk, we have an agency in Bidirk as well. So we do work with clients on that capacity. And that's kind of like much smaller businesses that we work with, smaller budgets, much smaller like retainer costs. So it's kind of like it's open to anyone that's trying to like promote their brand and sell products and services off the back of their YouTube channel and is already creating content. It's like Bidirk is a beautiful kind of agency that's designed purely for that. So bidirk.com is a great place to go for that. And then if you kind of like are spending big on YouTube and you want help with that, then viewability.co.uk is our agency for that help as well. Awesome. Well, Tom, thank you so much for taking time out today and going above and beyond, which is, just a testament to you, man. And loads of stuff there. I think a lot of people will be watching this again, listening to it again on the podcast. So thanks again, man. Thanks so much for your time. Cheers, Bill. Thanks for having me.